Hey everybody, welcome to Life is Beautiful. Today I want to talk to you about one of the weirdest things I've ever come across while I've been doing beer research. In 2016, a newspaper archivist in Norwich, England was going through their archives. They were looking at some of their old photographs and they were looking through a lot of their old articles in order to be able to digitize them and put them online. And the archivist stumbled across an interesting photo dating back to the 1920s. And there was absolutely no context, no articles written around it. It was just this one picture with a little blurb that read, "A brewery worker with about 22 years of service was instantly dismissed following the finding of a dead cat in a vessel of beer." And it seems that all of the men from the brewery and maybe the town, it's kind of unknown, they all rallied around this man and they started protesting and they were letting the public know that he was fired because there was a dead cat in a brewing vessel, and they basically went on strike because he was dismissed from his job. They took this article and they posted it online and, hoping to be able to gain some additional context from it because it certainly left a lot of people scratching their heads and eager to find out what the true story was behind this. People were just wondering, who was this man? Why was there a dead cat found in the brewing vessels? Why were there cats even in the brewery in the first place? Luckily, some internet sleuths were able to track down the details behind this. Now, we know that looking back through historical documents, at this particular time in the 1920s, there were 4 breweries operating within Norwich. And if we look at the actual picture from the boycott, the strike, we can see that it says boycott Morgan and Sons beer until the dismissed worker is reinstated. 90-year-old Norwich resident Victor Crow actually came forward and said that it was his father who was the man who was fired from the brewery. And you can actually see his father, Albert Crow, sitting at the front of the photo supporting an eye patch, which was necessary following an injury in World War I. Albert's job at the brewery was to ensure that the vessels were heated properly and that they maintained their boiling temperature throughout the duration of the brewing process. So why was there a cat? Still to this day, there's lots of brewery cats and there's even brewery dogs, but to a lesser degree. But they were especially employed back in the olden days because they were basically an in-house pest control system. Tons of rodents and other type of pests like to get into breweries and eat up the ingredients, especially the malt. And if you have a bunch of cats running around like crazy, it's very easy to be able to capture and kill the mice, which prevents them from breeding and spawning, and it just keeps the sanitization better, it keeps the pest control down, and plus it's just like a nice little morale thing. Lots of people love brewery cats. Now, it's unknown how exactly this cat wound up dead in this vessel. But, there's several different ways we can assume. Either it fell down and got trapped and either starved to death, or it fell down and unfortunately got boiled up, or maybe it just died of old age, crawled up in a dark, isolated place to pass away. It's rather unknown. It's also unknown when exactly the cat was found, whether it was during the process of the brew day, beforehand, after. We don't know. But what we do know is that he was taking all the blame for the dead cat, which, they say it was without reason, but if it survived a brew day, if it went through the actual boil, I'm not going to say that I don't blame them for firing him. According to the story from his son, it seems that he took this problem to his management, and for whatever reason, they immediately fired him. Newspapers, the historical brewery records, nothing really details this. And it's probably because this strike was actually incredibly short. Supposedly, the strike only lasted for a couple of days before Albert was actually reinstated, thanks to his crew rallying around him and riling against the establishment and the management and everything for what they saw as unjust. There's also a little bit of a conspiracy theory some people have that thinks that the brewery actually paid off the newspapers and everything not to run the photo, since obviously there was a photo taken, by the press. So A little bit interesting. But more likely, what actually happened was that the strike ended so quickly due to the brewery not wanting customers to find out about a dead cat in a brewing vessel, especially if there's three other major competitors in the same area, that the strike ended before the actual article was even able to be written, produced, and published. Fortunately, this story resolved, in favor of the fired employee who I guess his fellow employees felt was unjustified. But it's unfortunate for us here in the future trying to look back on beer history and we just don't have the details. So Albert resumed his duties and actually stayed there until the 1960s, until the brewery shut down. I guess the strike was a success. The brewery apparently didn't suffer any significant blowback since it was able to maintain production for an additional 40 years. So all's well that ends well. In conclusion, I just thought this was an incredibly weird and interesting story. It doesn't have a whole lot of meat on them bones, but it's definitely something interesting that I would love if we could get more information on somehow, some way, more people coming forward with stories from their fathers or their fathers' fathers. It would just be so cool to be able to flesh this whole story out. But either way, this is definitely the most interesting beer strike I've ever heard about. And in the modern day, with so many different breweries debating or being successful in unionizing, it's interesting to see some of, one, how successful it can be, and two, some of the many reasons that unionization is justified and needed in the brewing industry, but also just how weird they can be sometimes. Anyways, thank you very much for watching, everybody. Really hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned about this. I hope you enjoyed this weird, quirky story. I don't know. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Remember, there's a story in every bottle, and that life is beautiful. Cheers.